All right, welcome back, everyone, to the latest episode of the John Gill Podcast Show, and we are super excited to have on our newest guest. And before we present him, we just want to go ahead and thank our partner, Element Studios. That's EL3 MENT Studios. Go ahead and check them out. They're a full-service media production company. So with us, we have a very special guest today on the show, Jose Baeza. How are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good. I'm really excited, Jonathan.
Awesome.
I'm so excited to really be part of this. So thank you for your invitation.
Awesome. Well, he is the owner of Entrepreneur Funding Experts.
Yes.
Based here in Chicago, but they do funding for entrepreneurs
all over the country.
All over the country.
All over the country.
Awesome. And actually, Jose, you and I met a few years back. I also attended one of your networking events that you also host.
Yes, we do a lot of networking events all over the world.
Okay.
For myself, I attend some of the ones that are locally here in Chicago. We do some mainly in California areas. But yeah, we do them all over the world.
That's awesome. And from what I gathered, your company has built a lot of relationships with different commercial institutions that allow your company to easily provide funding options to entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. So we specialize in providing access to or providing capital for entrepreneurs all over the country. Sometimes people do come from different parts of the world, such as Canada. We get people from India, but these are mainly investors that are their investments are here in the States, and we primarily deal with real estate. Even though we can do any type of business, including cannabis businesses, our focus has always been around real estate because real estate investors are always looking for money.
That's true. That is definitely true. And as an investor, I know that's something that we're always definitely looking for. And before we dive even deeper into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history and how did you get involved in the lending business?
Absolutely. Have
you always been in this industry, or is this kind of a new thing?
You know what? I kind of ended up, it's so funny that how I ended up in this industry was a little bit of I want to say almost serendipity, because back when I was like 18 years old, about to graduate high school, I realized that a lot of my friends were trying to go to different careers. Mm. And for me, I've always been a fan of food. I love food.
Yeah, same here.
I almost became a chef. Almost.
Okay.
Until I realized that I took culinary arts I think it's a vocational school, like in high school. And I took culinary arts, and I realized that I don't like cooking for other people.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, cooking for myself is one thing, right? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of labor-intensive work. And then, you would serve it to people, and they would munch on it, like literally eat it in one bite. And I'm like, damn, that took me like literally over an hour.
So they wouldn't appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, and then plus I would also, I love food, so I would just see it and I would want to eat it. Okay. So I'd much rather make it for myself and then eat it.
So you got into the lending. You said, I'd rather make all this money and buy the food for myself.
Exactly.
And then
Right, no.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it actually started there, because I gathered an idea and I said, okay, so, this whole job thing's not going to work for me. I want to know, what do I need to do in order for me to make a lot of money? And this is one of those things where the law of attraction really played its role, because I didn't know about it. I just knew what I wanted. I wanted to make a lot of money. And that has always been my focus. So just out of nowhere, one of my teachers, it was like my social studies teacher, said, if you want to make a lot of money, you want to be an entrepreneur. And so that moment, I made a decision that I was going to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what that meant. So the first thing I did in my quest to be an entrepreneur was I would actually go home and I would figure out, what is an entrepreneur? Mm-hmm. I made that decision, but I said, okay, it looks like it's a business owner. From that point on, I literally went on, I would say, about 4 years worth of searching for that entrepreneurship spirit. Mm-hmm. And my search came through so many different jobs. I became a customer service agent for 3 years because I knew that if you wanted to be a business owner, you needed to know customer service.
Absolutely.
I ended up I became a telemarketer for 3 months. I didn't last long in that one.
Okay. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. And that's because I realized, I was very quiet and very shy back then. And I realized that I needed to step out of my comfort zone in order for me to make it. And so that's where I did that. Then last but not least, I knew that sales was important. And so I got a job at a company that sells credit card processing services. And I became the #1 salesperson for cash advances.
Wow.
And that's where I realized, all right, people are paying a lot of interest on these loans and people want these loans. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can give somebody $30,000 and their interest rate is anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, or I'm sorry, 15 to 30% interest on crazy payment loans.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a time and a place for those loans.
Sure.
But what it did was open the possibilities to other lending options. And I realized that, hey, if people are willing to pay this much money for that particular loan, there must be other loans out there that are a little bit more suitable for other business owners that may not need that money desperately or perhaps want to pay that much. And that's where I started exploring, and out of nowhere, now we work with over 150 lenders. We have hard money loan lenders, private money. Even myself,
Amazing.
We sometimes go ahead and I invest in a couple of projects myself.
See, that's great. You can tap a little bit into tap into those resources that
Absolutely.
you've built. And the best of all, you're sharing those resources with your clients and allowing
Yes.
them to achieve their end goal.
Absolutely.
So you're a great resource for anyone in the business looking for funding sources. So explain to the audience a little bit about some of your products exactly.
Yes.
That they can choose from.
So we primarily focus on 2 products, and that's term loans and credit lines. That has always been our go-to products. Term loans and credit lines because they're easier to apply for. Okay. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we want the money right away, but we don't want to pay too much money. So term loans, we can provide access to capital up to $350,000 in cash for as little as 3 to 5 business days, 2 weeks on average. And that means that the money will be deposited into their bank account within that period of time as cash.
Wow.
So whatever they use the money for, that's on them. Now, sometimes if
you don't
I
want to take it and go to Vegas.
It's happened before. It's happened before, yes.
You're going to have to get into some of those details. It doesn't surprise me at all.
I know. And see, those are the things that for me.
Discipline. Come on. Where's the,
Yeah, and that's my job. I've come to learn that it's not only my job to provide funding, but also provide as much experience from my end so that they can make the best decisions. Because sometimes, one of the things is that we just do what we can in that moment.
Right.
If we could do better, we would have done better. And that's why sometimes as entrepreneurs, we beat ourselves up. Oh man, I could have taken that deal. Oh man, I made a wrong decision. And it's not about making a wrong decision. It's about doing what you can in that moment, because with that amount of information that you have, you did your best. And that's all that matters. So for me, some clients that come through us, they might not have the experience in real estate that somebody like yourself or even myself have, and even just through being around other people. But that's my job and sometimes our jobs to really go out there and share our experience so that they don't have to go through the same loops that we did.
Absolutely. They're leveraging, all of that, and you're providing not just the loan product, but that past expertise.
Absolutely. And that's where the term loan comes in. The term loan really is perfect for a lot of business owners because they can literally, if they want to start if they want to purchase, let's say, a property, and they need $30,000 as a down payment. Well, good luck trying to convince a bank and say, hey, give me $30,000 so I can get your mortgage.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't work that way. So if you have access to a hard money lender that is about to give you, like, say, $300,000 or, like, say, 70% or 90% of the property to purchase it, you still have to come out to 10% to 20%. But where you come that money from is going to be from resources, whether it be your own pocket, whether it be friends and family. And in this situation, this term loan could be a perfect fit because we can give them the money based on two things: their credit and their income. Their credit has to be a minimum of a 680 FICO score, and their income, they just have to show that they can afford that particular loan. If it's $20,000, then their monthly payment's going to be around, I would say about $200. As long as they can afford that monthly payment, then they can go ahead and get access to the money. Now, we do it in so many different ways when it comes to the term loan. One way is that we can go straight to some of our lenders or local lenders, and sometimes depending on the profession, let's say that it's somebody that just got into real estate, but they still have a job. Let's say they're an actor or perhaps they're a veteran. There are certain institutions out there that do give those loans out to veterans and actors or people in the entertainment industry. And so we already have those people in our pockets and say, okay, we're going to take you to this lender because we know you're going to get the best rates. We know that you're probably going to get approved. You know, you have a high probability of getting approved. And for us, it's not about giving you, just throwing something in the air and hoping it sticks. It's about doing what we have with our knowledge and being able to say, okay, this person's criteria is this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. We can go ahead and send them over to these particular lenders, and then that's how we provide them access to funding. Now, the lines of credit is a little bit different because...
So really quick, with those term loans, so it's the credit of 680 minimum.
Yes.
The income is, again, how do they verify the income exactly?
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I learned this the hard way.
Okay.
I purchased my first home in cash, okay? So I didn't have to go through a lender.
That's amazing. Not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah,
so
I realize. Thank you. And the second home, the second property is a 2-unit. It's in Elgin. I bought it from one of my buddies. And the process of me getting approved for that loan was a little bit more crazy than buying it cash, because
Sure.
when I purchased it in cash, I went there, I hand them the cashier's check, I signed some documents, and then I got the keys, and I'm like, okay, cool. Took less than 30 minutes. The other process where you're in the bank, when there's a mortgage involved and there's a lot of verification, it can be over an hour.
Oh, it could be a pain for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, because of the way that we verify our income now
Yes.
for these term loans is that we can do it in one and two ways. The normal way is doing it through tax returns. But I know for me,
1 year, 2 years?
2 years.
Okay.
But here's the thing. When I purchased my mortgage, I didn't realize, or when I was about to purchase my mortgage, I didn't realize that tax returns, you get the gross income, and then sometimes we like to go ahead and deduct certain things. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, you end up with your actual net income. And when it comes to mortgage, you need that net income.
Right.
So for that reason, sometimes entrepreneurs are not able to say that they are making a certain amount of money. And so we have lenders that we can go around that and say, okay, this real estate investor has about, let's say, $4,000 in income that's coming in from rental properties. Okay. So we can use that as income. It doesn't have to be net. Sometimes we have people that have not filed their taxes for the last 2 years, and we can still use their either their bank statements or
how many months of bank statements would they need?
Bank statements, they would need at least 3 months, 3 to 6 months, but
Okay.
3 months minimum. And what it needs to show really is just that they have some money coming in. It needs to be a business bank statement or personal bank statement, but the money needs to be coming in from that consistent cash flow source.
Okay, so not relied as heavily on your bank balance per se,
Right.
but more on your deposits.
On the deposits,
Okay,
yes.
and then you take an average maybe of those deposits
Absolutely.
to come out with. Okay, I understand.
Yes, and as long as we can see that the money's coming in, we can go ahead and verify that income that way. Sometimes we can also do it through perhaps like even 1099s, or if they don't have any tax records for the last 2 years. There's so many different ways. We just care about them being able to afford the loan.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. It's very simple. We keep it very simple. All we need in order for us to pre-qualify somebody is just a copy of their credit report. A copy of the credit report is going to tell us whether or not we can
Amazing.
help them.
Perfect. And so then that was your term right?
Yes, that's the term loan. And then we get access to lines of credit.
Okay.
Now, the easiest lines of credit that we have is where it's in the form of a credit card. Okay. Now, there's some companies out there that are offering the credit cards. The only difference is that when it comes to credit cards, you have to use them in a specific way, because we actually started with our business lines of credit with the 0% interest rates, which we still offer. But now that banks are getting a little bit more, they're actually getting a little bit more loose with the approvals. We can actually provide even more funding on the credit cards. But as a real estate investor, you would really want to know whether or not it's appropriate. You can never go wrong with a credit card, because you can, when you're doing the fix and flip, you can pay contractors, whatnot.
Correct. And now, okay, so what kind of rates are we talking about typically on these loans? Are they like on the hard money side?
Okay, so for the rates on these term loans and even the credit lines can start as little as 0%. It's a little bit more difficult to...
Kind of like an introductory rate.
Rate, yes. Afterwards, it would be anywhere from 3% to as high as 18%, but it's really based on the person's history.
Which is a typical kind of credit.
Yes, on average is anywhere 6 to 8, by the way.
Okay.
So it's still pretty good.
It's not bad.
And it's on a yearly basis. Now, because, we're dealing with a lot of real estate investors, here's the thing. Sometimes people say, that's a lot of interest. Well, it depends on what you're going to use it for. Precisely. And for how long.
Right.
Because if you're doing a fix and flip, you shouldn't really be needing that money for the full 5 years or even the 3 years on the term loan. And realistically, if you're doing a credit line, you shouldn't be using it for the whole year. You should be able to pay it off. Or perhaps if you're doing a rental property, then you should make sure that the rental property is making enough revenues to cover some of those expenses.
Very true. And, that's, and you hit the nail on the head with that one, which is cash. We do run into cash flow problems, not just as investors, but all, I think, business owners run into sometimes some cash flow problems.
Absolutely.
So you are the perfect solution to kind of fix, their current situation, get them resolved, to then continue to move on.
Yes, for sure. And see, I'll give you like a little quick story. One of my clients right now we're working with, he has a hard money loan. Okay. The hard money loan is on a property. I don't know exactly what neighborhood it is, but it was about $200,000 that individual has on this particular hard money loan. The property is valued at over $400,000. So there's there's a little bit of
liquidity there.
Liquidity for there in there. But equity. The thing is that equity, and what happens is that the gentleman, the client, only needs $20,000 to finish the project. But here's the catch. He used part of that money. The reason why there's liquidity in that property or that equity is because that property was purchased partially in cash out of his pocket.
Oh, I see.
And he purchased it as a rehab. So right now the property is the lender or the mortgage company cannot refinance the property because it doesn't have a bathroom and it doesn't have a kitchen. So in order for them to actually refinance the property, it needs to be in livable condition,
right?
In which it's not, because it doesn't even have a kitchen or a bathroom,
right?
And so he needs that extra $20,000 to finish that. Once he finishes it, it will go ahead and get the money out. But here's the catch: he can get that money through the hard money lender, but the hard money lender is wanting to do the full amount again, which means that they will have to literally
take out the full 200.
The full 200, and he doesn't want to do that because he just needs 20. He's gonna get charged way more for the full 200 versus just trying to get a little bit for the 20,000.
What a perfect example!
Absolutely. And see, we come across those situations because the only reason why he's in that situation right now is because he didn't do his numbers right, and he ran out of cash. See, and he's literally right in the finish line.
I've seen it and I've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah. And guess what? If he doesn't, and right now he's still making those payments for the hard money loan lender, and if he doesn't make those payments, then he's gonna end up losing all that equity in the property. There's a lot of things that are in play in this for only $20,000.
Wow! How quickly is the closing time?
Like I said, it's pretty much about 3 to 5 business days. But
for the approval or for the actual funding?
For the actual funding.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
Yeah, the approval I can do it in as little as less than 24 hours.
Report,
yeah,
right,
with the credit report. That's pretty much it. But when it comes to the getting access to the money, it really depends on how organized the individual is, because there's a lot of people that don't necessarily have their tax returns on hand. They don't have the Social Security card on hand. Sometimes, there's situations where I've gotten where people just need their IDs and they're like, oh, I lost my ID. I'm like, oh God, are you serious? Just go to the DMV and it's like, oh, but it's kind of like 30 minutes away. Then you don't really need the money.
Yeah, that might be a client that you don't want to deal with too,
exactly.
Right? I mean, come on, if you're going to put problems for run into the DMV and really you're providing such a amazing product. I mean,
yes.
That's...
and I'll share another story because I come across, I have an abundance of stories like this, but here's what happens. I've actually had a client that was a pharmacist, a Walmart pharmacist, and he was making about $120,000 in income. Okay. And his credit score was it wasn't like super great, but it was still pretty good. It was about a 715.
715?
A 715.
That seems
good. It's pretty good. But here's the thing. I was able to, he called me, by the way, like literally at midnight. I don't know why I picked up, but I picked up at midnight. Because I just got some random call at midnight, and I'm like, who's calling from, like, what was it, Louisiana or something? I'm like, hello? Right. And it's like, and it's not, it's in that moment, it's like, are you Jose from YouTube? I'm like, because I have some YouTube videos.
Okay, we're going to have to talk about that too.
Yeah. And, it was this situation, it was like, yeah. It's like, oh, but the Jose from YouTube? I'm like, well, as far as I know, I guess it could be the only one, and long story short, I talked to him and I told him a little bit about what we do. And he's like, yeah, I'm trying to purchase this business, this existing pharmacy, and they want $200,000 and they want $150,000 for the business and $50,000 for the inventory. And I said, well, I can see what I can do for you. And long story short, I was able to raise $220,000 for him. Mm-hmm. Part of that was in cash through the term loans, and then $50,000, or I think it was a little bit like $70,000 in credit cards, because we had to liquidate some of those credit cards. But overall, it was a little bit over $220,000. We got him the money. He ended up getting it in his bank account, so technically, he ended up paying cash for that business.
I see.
And see, when he paid it in cash, he's not financing that business through a bank and in the banks in the bank world, it just shows that he has a loan, and it also shows that he just has some credit card. Right. But here's the thing. Okay, I don't even know how he did this. We charge a fee for the amount that we end up raising. So we charge a 15% success fee that we ended up charging for this client. And you might say like, oh, that's a lot. But no, it's not. And here's why. Because this gentleman was buying a business that's already generating about $30,000 in revenues per month. And so he just bought it out in cash. His monthly payments was literally about $2,000 per month. And then he was still working at this Walmart job for $120K. And so he's making all this money now. But I called up and followed up with him 6 months later. And I said, hey, how's everything? Yeah. And he said, oh, man, Jose, you're a lifesaver. Man, I owe you all my business and everything that I have in my success. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. Tell me, how's it going? Well, actually, I declared bankruptcy. And I'm like, what? How's that good? And I'm like, well, yeah, I noticed that the amount of money that you gave me, it all like some of that was appearing under my credit cards. And I'm like, why should I keep paying for my credit cards if I already have the business? And then he ended up like filing for bankruptcy. I'm like,
that's not how this works.
That was not what I was planning, but how did you do it? And then he's telling me all of these things. And I'm like, that's not really what you should do. But here's the thing. What I learned is that, that gives you a little bit of an idea of how flexible the program is. But at the end of the day, it also, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we get a little bit too creative, in my opinion. But guess what? He made it work. He made it work. And realistically, I
would say kind of, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, there's some clients that, and I gave another person like $50,000, and apparently that person went to Hawaii, and only after I paid my invoice, of course. That was a good thing. But I'm like, why would you go to Hawaii? And then there was this one other person that we gave him $30,000 for an event because it was going to be a charity event. And she ended up spending most of that he just paid $25,000 out of the 30 on just food.
You're kidding me.
Just food.
How is that even possible?
Yeah, I didn't know that was possible. And it was so crazy because I'm like, you spent $25,000 on food and then you spent $5,000 in the venue and then you're still missing more money. Like that doesn't make sense.
Something doesn't add up. Yeah.
But see, that's the part where
money management is really important.
Money management is huge. And that's really what that's really one of the things that I focus on with my clients now, where, you know, all of these things happen and there's sometimes we won't be able to prevent the tenant that lives in, you know, in one of our properties. You know, sometimes some of these people might be like, oh, you know, they look like a good person. They go ahead and provide all the criterias. They have a job, you know, good credit score. And before you know it, like it just turns into a nightmare. And then you're wondering, like, how did it happen? Sure. And all you can do is just really learn from it. And see, with even some of the lenders that we work with, when we're talking to them, we do our best to sort everybody out because we only want to work with people that not only have good intentions, but that, you know, that are ethical.
Absolutely.
Because how you're going to do somebody else is really how you're going to do me. You know.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. Well, that definitely says a lot of the ease of which you can get the loan. So that's
Absolutely.
Great because you're, you know,
right.
I mean, that's definitely.
I mean, that's one of the things we can get out of it.
So that's great. You know, but definitely money management is very important. You don't want to necessarily take all those funds and go to Hawaii or declare bankruptcy. You know,
right.
but you, like you're saying, I mean, it's definitely a great tool, and it seems pretty easy just to apply and get the show started.
Absolutely.
Are there, you know, kind of switching gears, are there any sort of books that you're reading today or anything that can kind of help entrepreneurs along the way to get them mentally fit for, you know, their career?
Absolutely. All right. I'm reading a really good book it's from Joe Sugarman. It's a copywriter. And I didn't really, you know, I've always done some of my marketing and I've gotten help, of course, and I'm around a lot of marketers. So I've never really thought of myself like as a copywriter, but I'm reading the book and I'm like, wow, you know, a lot of this makes sense because we're always looking to influence people, not only with our words, but with our emails and how we approach people, how we write to people, whether it be through text messaging or whatever. I would highly recommend that book. It's amazing. I believe it's called Copywriting by Joe Sugarman.
Okay.
And it's a really easy book because it really gets you deep into the story and it goes deep into the psychology of copywriting.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that I really do like a lot is Outwitting the Devil. Have you heard of it?
Never.
Oh, you're going to love it. It's called Outwitting the Devil by Sharon Lechter and Napoleon Hill. And it's a really good book because it's a little bit of, you know, I don't know how to describe it, but it's basically an interview with the devil where it tells you why people don't succeed and how people can become quote unquote drifters because we get into the habit of doing things that we know we're not supposed to do, but we can't help but get into it. You know, you've heard that little saying where it's like, oh, you know, I'll just have one beer. And then before you know it, turns into a second, third.
I think we've all been there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And actually, we might have actually been there at one of your networking events.
Yeah.
So explain the networking events. You're also doing networking events.
Yes.
So how has that been? And are you still doing them?
Yes, I am still doing them. We do networking events all over the Chicagoland area primarily. And the reason why I got involved in the networking events is because back when I was starting in my career, I would attend a lot of seminars, but I would always be that quiet one.
Sure. And
the more I got involved, the more I started kind of like liking to talk to people more and more and learning about their stories, learning about their goals. And before I knew it, I knew a lot of people. I knew a lot of people, and a lot of these individuals would go ahead and open up their doors and say, "Oh, Jose, I have a person that's looking for your services," or, "Hey, why don't you come and speak at our events?" And then I started doing meetups, and I still have some meetup groups around the city, and that's really what we focus on. We focus on connecting, because see, when
how has that helped your business? For anyone looking to expand their business, do you think obviously you're doing them. How has that improved or provided value to your business?
It has provided value tremendously, because sometimes we do not know how we're going to impact somebody's life. And it goes really deep, because there's been so many times where I almost don't attend a networking event because I feel tired. I just don't feel like it.
Sure.
And then my inner being is like, "Oh, you should probably go. You already purchased a ticket.
You never know who you're gonna meet.
You never know who you're gonna meet."
Right.
And then I go ahead and listen to that inner voice. And there was this one time, well, several times, but this one particular time, I go in there and I said, "I really don't want to go. I think I just came out of a plane from California or something like that. I'm like, I purchased this ticket," and I went, and I actually just went straight to the restroom, because I was just gonna try and avoid kind of talking to people.
Yeah.
And then I went out. I got outside, and the first person I met was it's now a client of mine, but she was like, "Hey, what's your name?" I'm like, "I'm Jose." And I did the whole networking thing, and before I knew it, I realized that she was looking in desperate need for money. She needed $30,000 for a charity event. And I went ahead and I said, "Well, you know what? I offer funding services, so maybe I can help you." And right then and there, in that moment, she provided me her credit report. I do not know why she had it with her, but she literally provided me the report. And right, exactly. Yeah. And I got it, and I was, "Oh, you qualify, and here's the money that I can provide to you." And the next day, she filled out the application, and then we gave her, I think, like $40,000.
Amazing.
And she was super grateful. It was for a great cause. And if I wouldn't have been there, that wouldn't have happened. I'm sure that she would have gotten the money somewhere else, but I'm glad it was me. And there's so many other stories where I almost don't go, and just, out of nowhere I go and I meet the perfect individual, or somebody that I need to speak with, somebody that I need to learn from. And
that's a lesson right there. You show up even though you don't want to, because you never know when the opportunity might come up.
Yeah, you never know. That person might have the next real estate deal, for all you know.
Exactly. And so anyone looking to attend your networking events, how can they reach you?
Absolutely. You can reach me directly at you can actually go to my website at efundingexperts.com. We do have a section there for events, but you can...
E-funding experts?
Yeah, e-funding experts with an S, yes, okay. Plural.com. You can also look me up on Facebook under Jose Baeza, and I post a lot of my events there. There are 2 events that we have coming up. One of them is Business Accelerator 2020, and it's businessaccelerator2020.com. And we're going to it's an entrepreneurship event. The whole point of that event is to connect entrepreneurs here in the Chicagoland area. So we're actually hosting that in the old McDonald's Corporation building in Oak Brook.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes. That's we're going to do that. We're expecting about 500 people there.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're going to bring in Sharon Lecter. She's the author of Outwitting the Devil, and she's also co-author of the very famous book, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No kidding.
Absolutely.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so you guys definitely want to go there and just check it out, because you can learn a lot, and you never know who you're going to meet. Yeah,
we'll definitely provide a link to the event on all of our pages, and so that's in 2 weeks.
That's in 2 weeks. That's on
is there a price
March
or anything?
6 to 8. The price is $49 for just a ticket. And then you can go out to a VIP. I believe it's $149, and you get a chance to meet Sharon and some of the other speakers.
Very reasonable.
Absolutely. And it's actually a whole weekend. It's Friday to Sunday. And the whole purpose, again, is to share ideas, be able to network with other entrepreneurs, be able to create a mastermind with other like-minded individuals.
So that's amazing, and I think we're going to be attending. We have a full packed studio today here at our studio, and I want to do something a little different.
Sure.
And we have Element Studios with us. In fact, like I said, we have a packed room. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe now that we've got Jose here regarding the funding, anyone's got in their mind that would like to ask Jose? In fact, we also have a friend of ours just arrived here from India yesterday. So, what do you think?
I do have a question.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, come on over. Let's see. We're gonna bring him in.
Cool.
Come on.
Hey, so my
Speak
name
into
is
the mic.
Zishan. I'm a freelance graphic designer, and I am pretty much like starting my journey. So, first of all, your journey, your words are very inspirational for sure.
Thank you.
So the question that I have is, when you started this whole journey, what was your financial situation, and were you always very smooth with money, or was this a trade that came with time before starting the business?
Mm-hmm.
The main thing that you have, and after starting the business. Number one, so the financial aspect of it. How did you manage money? So you can definitely speak very good about that, and I would learn.
Yeah.
But also the sub part of that question is, what do you think was the role of your mindset in the whole process?
Yes.
Like, I could definitely see you someone who definitely does not want to compromise and want to go to big goals.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing about managing money, how was your financial situation? But also during the whole process, what would you say, how did your mindset change during the whole time, and how important it is along with the practical steps?
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question.
Thank you so much.
That's a great
do we
question.
have the applause sound effect?
Yes.
No, okay. Well, we've got the roadcaster there, so we're trying to play around with that. But yeah, if you could answer, that would be great.
You know what? And thank you for that question, because your question is really something that many entrepreneurs have, including myself. When I started my journey, I did not have I didn't have any money really. See, what happens is that I came from an immigrant family background where we really never, I think I'm the first entrepreneur in my family. And whenever I would talk to my mom about, business, she would do the best that she could. She would try and understand me. But I remember when I would go in and I would work on my computer, she would always say, "What are you doing, computer? Come on, let's all have family time." And family time in with our family, it would be more watching TV together and all that. But for me, my vision was more about, I want to be able to go ahead and provide for my family later on, because my mom has this saying, and this is what she would say. Whenever I would have a little bit of money, and I wouldn't make much, but I would still, the most I ever made in my job was $30,000, and I thought that was like super rich, because I couldn't really keep it. I would go ahead and get an $800 check, and before I knew it, it was gone. I actually started. I went to a seminar, and they said, you want to write down your goals and you want to have a money graph, and that's something that I encourage, a money graph. The money graph was. It would be, I would measure it 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 10 years. And I would say, okay, this is how much money I'm making per month. And I would make it grow. And I would always visualize the future. But in that present moment, I would track it, because what gets measured gets done. And that's something that my mentor taught me. If you don't measure it, you're not going to get it done. And so when I created this graph, I would always notice that I would never go past the $800 mark on my checking account, because it would always go back down, 800. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm making the rules. I'm going to have it go up. Even when I wasn't making more than 800 and I didn't have more than $800, I would physically put that pen on that mark, and I would say, okay, now I have 1,000, now I have 3,000. As a matter of fact, now I have 100,000. And in that very moment, I didn't really quite believe myself, but I said, you know what? This is my graph. This is what I have, and this is what I believe that I have. And that's how I really started changing my mindset, because when I started, my mom, as I mentioned, my mom had this saying that's like, oh, son, si lo trabajas, tienes que comer. And that's something that says, like, if you work for it, you can go ahead and enjoy it, eat it. But see, the problem is that sometimes our moms, especially, or if you come from a family that's more impoverished or comes from a poor side, sometimes they don't have food in the table. So whenever there is food, you eat it.
Of course.
And see, that's also a habit where sometimes if you notice some people, or even in certain occasions, there's certain people that would eat fast, or perhaps they don't like to waste any food on the table. Sometimes that comes from a lack mentality. And I say that because in certain situations, our background, our filters say, you know what, you might as well just eat it because there won't be any more in the future. And see, there's a lot of subconscious there's a lot of things that go into our subconscious that we have to be aware of. And when I started learning about that, I realized that my mom wanted me to go ahead and spend my money, because she said, we're not going to live forever. We can't take our money home, so might as well just enjoy it. But see, sometimes we take it too literal, where, we might not be able to take it with us, but right, that also means that what happens to 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you don't want to keep working. You want to be able to retire, have a good life. We still have to think about the future. And sometimes it won't come from our family, because remember, we can only do what we can in that moment, and our parents can only provide us with what their experiences are. If they knew any better, they would tell us, better. But when I started my business, I had to kind of go against my belief systems that my mom taught me, because they weren't going to do me any good, and they weren't helping me, and I realized that. And so I started, when I left my job, I had $1,000 in my bank account. And I remember going to downtown, because I jumped the ship and I said, you know what, I'm going to work with two business partners, or two people that I had met in a networking event. Mm-hmm. And they were telling me about their business, and then they invited me over. They're like, yeah, whenever you want to come, join us. We're here for you. And I said, okay, sure. And then I quit my job literally the next day. They weren't expecting it. I show up at their office and they're like, hello. And I said, yeah, I came here to join you guys. You guys said I could join you. So I started working with them, and it was tough. It was tough because I didn't realize the value of how much money really plays in our lives until you don't have any. And so my expenses were, because I wasn't really making a lot of money in my job, I kept my expenses low, but it was still like $800 per month, and I only had $1,000 in my bank account. So the key to it was literally hustling. I would wake up early in the morning at 5 a.m, because I live in Wakanda, not the one from the movie Wakanda, Illinois. And but I would wake up early in the morning. I would drive 3 hours, and I'm not kidding, 3 hours in the morning, on my way to Chicago River North. And I would work there until 10 p.m. And I did that every single day, including Saturdays and sometimes Sundays. And what would I have to eat? Sometimes I would go to the corner at a 7-Eleven store. I would get $1 hot dog, and I would pour it. Where I would put a whole bunch of tomatoes and onions, anything that was
all
free.
The condiments, yeah.
All right, all the condiments, and that would keep me up there, at least until I would get off of work. And then we would look for places where they would sell like $5 burgers and stuff. But we would celebrate with a pizza and whatnot. But in that moment, you just really have to not focus on the overall picture that you're living, because sometimes we are not living the life that we would want to live, but we always have to remember that, and this might sound cliche, it is the journey. It's not just the destination, because we always want to get to the destination. But see, the key, what I've learned is that there will never be a quote unquote destination, because once we get there, we want more.
Absolutely.
If you don't want more, we are not meant to be stagnant. If we don't want more, then our lives becomes boring, and then all of a sudden, like, we become sad and depressed, and then we wonder, like, what is life all about? And then we forget about our current blessings. And it's really just about trying your best, figuring out that just because you may not be in the situation that you are, like in the financially, you have to remember that you're going to get there. and you have to be okay with it, because as entrepreneurs, I feel like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And even myself, sometimes I have to go in and go to, and I have to go into a little retreat. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just sitting in your living room and meditating, learning, counting your blessings, realizing that it's not that bad. And once we learn to do that, then we realize that more blessings are coming, because if you think about it, for all of us that are in this room, we have our arms, our legs, our eyes.
Perspective absolutely plays a big role.
Absolutely. And there's people out there that don't have as much as we do, and yet they're happier, and they because they remember what they have most of the time. And it's about us remembering who we are, because deep within us, we are all inner beings, that we're all connected. See, well, everything's energy, and energy is everything. And kind of going back to your other question about how that affected me in my personal relationship with money, is that I had to change my mindset. And we all have to change our mindset. We have to learn how to respect money, because money is energy. And the moment that we treat that energy in a way that is not attractive, we start actually repelling it. And it may sound a little bit weird for some of you, but see, what happens is that we all attract energy. We all attract who we are. We attract the people that we surround ourselves. That's why, I'll tell you, it's like one of my mentors says, tell me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you are. And that's very true, because you want to hang around with people that are like-minded, because if you look at the 5 people that are closest to you, those are the type of people that you are. That's a reflection of you. Absolutely. If you don't like who you're around, then change it.
Yeah. That was an amazing answer, and I think that definitely says a lot about, the power of mindset, and also just, we do grow up with a lot of things from the past, our parents,
yes,
put on us. And sometimes you have to unlearn that, because it's just basically of their circumstances, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're looking out for our best interest. Sometimes you have to push that to the side and understand that, it's just a different type of mindset at the time for their survival.
Right.
And, we're now in a situation that there's a lot of, I always say, it really is just, if you want it, you're going to go out and get it. And there's really no excuse. You just have to just change your actions, your attitude, and go for it.
Absolutely.
Do you think execution, or planning versus execution, how important is it for you, the planning versus the execution? Because, I'll let you answer that.
All right. So I believe, and this is a little bit interesting, because, one of the things when it comes to planning, things will not work out the way we want them to all the time. Things will always, see, as entrepreneurs, we have to remember to be moldable, to be able to be flexible, because if you're not flexible, you are going to have the most terrible time trying to figure things out. One of the things is that whenever we try and make something work, whether it be an event, a deal, or anything in particular in our lives, when we plan it out as, okay, this needs to be it, like step 1, step 2, step 3, sometimes those steps will not be in 1, 2, 3. Sometimes they will be in 2, 5, 3, 1, and we have to be able to adapt to it. And see, when it comes to planning, I'm very flexible, because I may plan something, but I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't always know how it's going to happen. But when it does happen, I have to be able to execute right away, be prepared. Because let's say that we're looking to close on a deal, right? I have a property that I have in the market, and I'm looking to close on a deal. Well, all right, you already have a seller, or let's say a buyer, whatever it is, and the deal's going to close by Monday. But then you have an idea that it might not close. There's something happens where there's a 50-50 chance that it might not close. Somebody comes up and gives you a little bit less money, but it gives you cash. So then what do? In that moment, you still want to get rid of the house. So you have to wonder as to whether it's worth it being able to take a little bit less money, but the guarantee, or take a little bit more money, but no guarantee, and there being a 50-50 chance that it might not work. See, as entrepreneurs, I've learned that things don't always will work the way that we plan, but we do have to be ready to execute no matter how it happens.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, I think a lot of people spend too much time on the planning side.
Absolutely.
And don't execute. And, that's why I was curious to hear your response, because I see it all the time. Everyone will take forever to do a beautifully drafted plan.
Right.
And the saying is, a perfect plan executed too late isn't very good.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
Interesting. Now, do you have any regrets about any sort of business regrets, or is there anything that you look back on and wish you could have changed?
That's a very interesting question, because I think I'm still learning on that. Because, one of the things that I've learned about regrets is that there really can't be many regrets. And I don't think realistically, my inner being is saying that there is no regrets. And here's why. Because sometimes regrets are something that we wish we would have done better. But as I mentioned before, if we would have done better, we would have done it. Like, if we knew about it, if we knew that there was a better way of doing something,
Absolutely.
we would have done it.
Yeah.
There's no way. And see, also that those type of moments are what makes us who we are. If we would have closed that deal, or if we would have done this, or if I wouldn't have offended this person,
Yeah.
And see, what happens is that too many people are stuck in regrets, because we carry a lot of resentment, not only from our childhood, but also from our business relationships, from our personal relationships. Oh, that person, I remember 5 years ago,
He screwed me out of...
Yeah, and you think about it, and you're like, I regret going into business with this person. No, that's the wrong way, because then you're not forgiving yourself. More importantly, you're not forgiving the other person, but you're not forgiving yourself, and that only turns into more issues internally with yourself, with spiritually, in your mental health, and then also in your physical health, because a lot of that stress and all of those things that you are putting your focus on will only block the creativity that you are, and that's going to prevent from you going and doing the next event, webinar, attracting the next deal, or even attracting your next partner. For people that are, going through situations in their relationships, oh, I remember when I was married, she was not. But guess what? You're forgetting about now. You're forgetting about what you can have. And it's easier said than done, because, I've always knew about certain things, and I wouldn't do it, because in that moment, we don't think about, I remember, like, when I would get upset and my family would go in and say something like, whatever happened with you in your personal development? And then I would be so angry. I'm like, well, I don't care about that, but it's in that moment we forget about those things, that we know who we are. We know what we do. And so it's important for us not to beat ourselves up, not to say that we do have regrets, but rather to say that we have learning experiences.
Perfect. And before we sign off here, any last advice that you'd like to give the audience about either starting a business or about obtaining loans?
I would just say go for it. And here's why. Just be yourselves too. Be yourself, because when I started my entrepreneurship career, I didn't know what was, and even right now, I don't know how everything's going to turn out. But guess what? I know it's going to work. I know that I know my ultimate goals. I wrote them down. I would highly encourage every one of you guys to actually write down your goals. Not a lot of people write down their goals, and that's the biggest problem.
Physically handwriting down the goals is so important.
Yes.
Not just thinking it or writing it on your phone. No, actually handwriting is just something so powerful, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. For me, I write them down, and you really need to put at least an hour out of your time. If you want to get into the zone, look at some pictures that maybe perhaps the time where you went on vacation, or the time that you rode that really nice car, and get yourself in that moment, and then put it away and then literally go ahead and write your goals. Here's some tips that I actually do to write down my goals. I write down 3-month goals, 6-month goals, 1-year goals, 3-year goals, 10-year goals, and I write them down in the topics of health, business, wealth, philanthropy, and also relationships. And that's going to take a while, but guess what? When you really think about it, you're building your life.
Yes.
Because if you don't know where your life is going to be, or perhaps of what you want out of life, that's the biggest problem. People don't know where to go. You can't aim at something if you don't even know where it's at.
Absolutely.
And see the problem. And so I would say, write down your goals, do whatever you can to, I even carry them with me in my backpack, or whenever in my office, I always take them out of my bag and I put them in my desk. It's a reminder. Read them before you go to bed. Go ahead and read them after you get off or get on the bed. And then situations like that, it will make a big difference, because you really are focusing on what your life is.
And that's, you said it, you said it right, and I love it. Writing those down is just makes the big difference.
Absolutely.
So everyone's homework assignment, literally right after they get off this podcast, or right now, grab a piece of paper, seriously, right now, and write down your goals. I think that's the funnest part about life, that you can mold, you can create your future.
Absolutely. You don't know where it's going to take you unless you're willing to write it down. And guess what? If you write it down, it's going to be fun, because it's your life.
Exactly.
It's your life.
So, Jose, it's been great. I mean, what an amazing podcast we've had today. And, but before we sign off here, I want to thank again our partner, Element Studios. That's EL3MENT Studios. Go ahead and check them out. And, Jose, can you just, one last time, where can they find you?
Yes, they can find me at www.efundingexperts.com. Or they can also call me directly at 847-302-8302.
All right. Well, thanks again. It's been great. And have a great time,
and
everyone.
also
Hold on. We go. Yeah.
Don't forget also, you guys can search me on YouTube. Just type down my name, Jose Baeza, and you guys can see some of my videos as well.
Amazing. Okay, so we've got your YouTube. We have your networking events. We've got your phone number and your website. So that's it. I mean, you can't hide from us now. Okay?
No, thank you, John.
Well, thanks so much. It's been great. It's been a pleasure. All right, till next time.